A helpless baby crawls unknowingly toward its doom. Just inches away, a deadly electric wire crackles, ready to strike. Time is running out. No one is near enough to save the child. But then, out of the shadows, emerges a massive mother bear. Her eyes lock onto the baby. Her next move? So shocking, so unimaginable, it will send chills down your spine. The morning sun casts golden rays over a peaceful forest, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink. Birds chirp joyfully, their melodies blending with the soft rustling of leaves as a gentle breeze swept through the towering trees. The village nearby had just begun to wake, women preparing meals, men setting out for work, and children playing near their homes. It was just another ordinary day. But in the heart of this tranquility, something was about to go terribly wrong. A tiny baby, barely able to crawl, had somehow wandered away from the village. No one noticed. No one saw the little one slip through the open wooden gate, giggling softly, unaware of the danger ahead. Small hands touched the damp grass, tiny feet kicked up dust, and innocent eyes gleamed with curiosity. The baby moved forward, unaware that with each inch, the world around was holding its breath. Just ahead, nestled between the roots of two old trees, lay a live electric wire. Torn from a broken pole during the last storm, it lay hidden from plain sight, its deadly energy crackling silently. Sparks leaped from its frayed ends, flickering like tiny fireflies, but unlike fireflies, this glow was lethal. A single touch could mean the end. The baby inched closer, one tiny hand reaching forward. The tension in the air grew thick, as if even nature sensed the looming disaster. A lone bird, perched high above, let out a sharp cry, a warning no human could understand. The baby giggled, oblivious to the impending doom. Meanwhile, in the dense shadows of the forest, something stirred. Large, powerful paws moved soundlessly over the earth. A pair of deep, intelligent eyes locked onto the scene unfolding. A mother bear, massive, strong, and alert, watched from a distance. Most would expect a wild bear to be indifferent, perhaps even dangerous. But this mother bear was different. Something in her instincts told her that this tiny creature was in trouble. Her ears twitched. Her nose flared as she caught the scent of something unnatural in the air, burning, crackling energy. Then, the baby's tiny fingers hovered just inches above the wire. And in that instant, the mother bear charged forward. The ground trembled beneath her weight as she sprinted toward the helpless child. Her enormous frame cut through the trees like a shadow of doom, yet her eyes held no malice, only urgency. What happened next left the entire village in tears. The sun hung low over the peaceful village, casting long golden rays through the dense forest. Birds chirped softly in the distance, and a cool breeze rustled the treetops, creating a soothing melody that signaled the start of another ordinary day. Children played near their homes, villagers tended to their daily chores, and life carried on as usual. But in the heart of this calm, something was happening, something that would change everything. A tiny baby, barely able to crawl, had unknowingly wandered beyond the safety of the village. The wooden gate had been left slightly open, and with innocent curiosity, the child had slipped through, giggling softly as it explored the unfamiliar ground beneath its tiny hands. Step by step, the baby moved forward, completely unaware of the danger that lay ahead. Just a few feet away, hidden beneath fallen leaves and tangled roots, a live electric wire lay on the ground. Torn from a broken pole during last night's storm, it crackled softly, releasing deadly sparks. Its thin, frayed ends flickered like tiny fireflies, but unlike fireflies, this glow was a silent killer. One touch could mean instant death. The baby inched closer, reaching forward. A gasp ran through the village. Someone finally noticed. A woman, possibly the child's mother, screamed in terror. Others turned to see what was happening. A man bolted forward, but the child was too far. Panic spread like wildfire. People ran, but deep down, they knew they wouldn't make it in time. The baby's small fingers hovered inches above the deadly wire, its innocent laughter piercing through the rising fear. And then, a rustling in the bushes. From the shadows of the dense forest, something stirred. Leaves shook, twigs snapped, and then, emerging like a force of nature, a massive mother bear stepped into the clearing. She was huge, her thick fur gleaming under the sunlight. Her deep, dark eyes locked onto the baby, unblinking. Her ears twitched, her breath steady but alert. The villagers froze, not just in fear, but in pure absolute shock. A bear? Here? At this moment? No one dared to move. They had seen bears before, but never like this. She was close, too close. Would she attack? Ignore the baby? Or do something no one could ever predict? The baby, unaware of the sudden tension in the air, let out a small laugh, still reaching forward. The wire hissed again, sparks flying. The bear's expression changed. Her body stiffened. Her eyes, once scanning the area, now fixated on the baby and the deadly wire ahead. And then, in a single, breathtaking moment, she charged forward. Gasps rang through the crowd. Women covered their mouths. A man instinctively reached for a stick, but no one could move fast enough. The ground shook beneath the bear's massive paws as she sprinted toward the baby. She wasn't stopping. A fraction of a second before the baby's fingers could touch the wire, boom! The bear lunged. But instead of swiping her giant claws at the child, she skidded to a halt and did something that left everyone speechless. With the gentleness of a mother, she scooped the baby into her massive paws, lifting it away from the deadly wire. Silence. No one spoke. No one breathed. The bear held the baby close, cradling it in her fur. Her chest rose and fell, her body still tense. The baby blinked up at her, its small hands reaching toward her face, unaware of the disaster it had just escaped. And then the unthinkable happened. The bear let out a deep, mournful sound. It wasn't a roar. It wasn't a growl. It was something else entirely. A mother's cry. Tears welled in the eyes of the villagers. No one could believe what they were witnessing. The bear didn't hurt the baby. She didn't run away. She just held it. Then, slowly, she turned her head, her gaze now fixed on the villagers. There was no aggression, no threat, only sadness. And at that moment, a realization swept through the crowd. She had lost a child of her own. That's why she had been watching. That's why she had reacted. This wasn't just an act of instinct, it was an act of love. For a moment, the world stood still. The great mother bear, the helpless baby, and the tearful villagers, all frozen in a moment that no one would ever forget. Then, as gently as she had lifted the baby, the bear placed it down on the soft grass. She gave the child one last look, then slowly turned away, walking back into the forest without a sound. The villagers rushed forward, gathering the baby into their arms. The mother sobbed, hugging her child tightly. But their eyes remained on the path where the bear had disappeared, their hearts forever changed. This wasn't just a story of survival. It was a story of a mother's love, beyond species, beyond logic, beyond anything anyone could explain. And that day, deep in the heart of the forest, a mother bear taught the world that love knows no boundaries. The forest stood still, the towering trees swaying gently in the cool morning breeze. Birds chirped softly, their melodies blending with the rustling leaves. The village, nestled on the edge of the forest, had just begun to stir. Children laughed, elders chatted, and life moved forward as it always had. But in the middle of this peace, something was happening, something no one saw coming. A tiny baby, barely able to crawl, had somehow wandered away from the village. The wooden gate had been left slightly open, and with nothing to stop the child's innocent curiosity, it had slipped through, giggling softly as it explored the world beyond. No one noticed. The baby moved forward, small hands brushing against the earth, tiny feet kicking up dust. There was no fear, no hesitation, only curiosity. But just a few feet ahead, hidden among the grass and tangled roots, lay something deadly. A live electric wire. Last night's storm had caused a power line to snap, leaving this high-voltage wire exposed. It crackled softly, sending out tiny blue sparks, an invisible predator waiting for its victim. And the baby was heading straight for it. A woman turned, her eyes scanning the area absent-mindedly. Then she froze. For a second, she couldn't comprehend what she was seeing. Then, a scream. The entire village turned toward the sound. People rushed forward. Panic spread like wildfire. The baby reached forward, its tiny fingers just inches from the wire. One more second, just one, and it would all be over. Then, a rustling in the bushes. Something huge emerged from the shadows of the forest. A mother bear. Gasps filled the air. Women clutched their chests. Men reached for whatever they could grab. Sticks, stones, anything that could fend off the beast. But no one moved. Because this wasn't normal. This wasn't just another wild bear passing through. She wasn't growling. She wasn't attacking. She was watching. Her deep, intelligent eyes locked onto the baby. Not the villagers. Not the movement. Just the baby. Something shifted in the air. The baby laughed. Another step forward. And then the bear charged. A massive force, moving faster than anyone could have imagined. A beast of pure power, sprinting toward the child at full speed. The villagers screamed. Some closed their eyes, unable to watch what they thought was about to happen. But instead of swiping her claws, instead of sinking her teeth into the child, she did something no one could have predicted. With a swift, precise motion, she lifted the baby. Gasps echoed through the air. The baby was no longer in danger. The bear had scooped it up in her massive paws, lifting it away from the deathly wire just in time. The villagers stood frozen, their hearts pounding in their chests. Had they just witnessed a bear save a human baby? Why? How? It defied all logic. The bear held the child, breathing heavily. Her massive frame trembled slightly, her dark eyes filled with something human. Was it worry? Pain? Love? The villagers couldn't understand. But the truth was written all over her face. This wasn't just a wild animal acting on instinct. This was something deeper. She stared at the baby, her grip firm yet gentle. The baby reached up, touching the bear's fur with tiny fingers, giggling softly. There was no fear, only trust. The bear exhaled, a deep, mournful sound escaping her throat. It wasn't a growl. It wasn't a warning. It was a mother's cry. The realization hit like a tidal wave. She had lost a cub. The way she looked at the baby, the urgency in her movements, the way she protected instead of harmed, it all made sense now. Somewhere, in the depths of this forest, she had once had a child of her own. And she had lost it. Maybe to hunger. Maybe to a hunter's bullet. Maybe to fate itself. But in this moment, she saw her child in this tiny human. And she did what any mother would do. She saved it. Tears welled in the eyes of the villagers. No one dared to move. No one dared to break the moment. The great mother bear lowered the baby gently back to the ground. Then, she took a step back. For a moment, she simply watched. Then, slowly, silently, she turned and walked away. The villagers remained frozen, watching as she disappeared into the trees, swallowed by the shadows of the forest. She didn't look back. She didn't need to. She had done what she came to do. And just like that, she was gone. The baby, now safely back in its mother's arms, cooed softly. But the villagers, they would never be the same. Because on this day, in the heart of a silent forest, they had witnessed something unexplainable. A mother's love, boundless, selfless, and stronger than the laws of nature. Because love has no boundaries, not between species, not between enemies, not between logic and the impossible. And that day, a mother bear proved it. Forever. A wave of relief swept through the villagers as the tiny child, unaware of the chaos, cooed softly in its mother's arms. The mother sobbed, holding her baby close, overcome with emotions too powerful to describe. But then, something felt wrong. The bear didn't move. She just stood there. Massive, unmoving, her deep, dark eyes locked onto the baby, not with hunger, not with aggression, but with something else. Something painful. Something human. The villagers, still frozen in shock, watched in silence. No one knew what to do. No one dared to move. And then, an old villager gasped. His face turned pale as he took a trembling step forward. He knew. He recognized her. A murmur ran through the crowd. The others turned to him, their eyes full of confusion. And then, in a voice barely above a whisper, he spoke. "It's her, the mother bear." The words hung in the air, heavy and cold. At first, no one understood. What did he mean? But then, the realization hit. The bear didn't come here by accident. This wasn't just an act of kindness. This was something far, far deeper. The old man's voice trembled as he continued, his eyes never leaving the bear. "A year ago, she had a cub." Silence. The villagers exchanged looks, their hearts pounding. They remembered now. The story had spread through the village. A mother bear and her tiny cub, seen wandering near the village outskirts, always together, always inseparable. Until one day, the cub vanished. No one knew what happened. Some said it fell into the river. Others whispered about poachers. Some believed it had simply wandered too far and never returned. But one thing was certain, the mother bear had searched for it. For weeks, villagers had seen her roaming the edges of the forest, sniffing the ground, letting out deep, sorrowful cries. A mother searching for her lost child. But she never found it. And then, she disappeared. Until now. Until this moment. A shiver ran down the spines of everyone standing there. The mother bear hadn't just saved a random baby. In her heart, she thought she was saving her own. The baby let out a soft giggle. The bear's massive frame shuddered. And then, a sound broke through the silence. A deep, mournful sound. Not a growl, not a roar. Something else entirely. A sound of grief. A mother's grief. Her dark eyes glistened as she gazed at the baby, her chest rising and falling with slow, heavy breaths. She knew now. She had saved a child, but not her child. The villagers felt it in their bones. They weren't looking at a beast. They were looking at a mother who had lost everything. The bear lowered her head slightly, taking one last long look at the baby, the child she had saved, but not the one she had lost. And then, with slow, deliberate steps, she turned and walked away. No one stopped her. No one moved. They only watched. Her massive frame disappeared into the trees, swallowed by the shadows of the forest. She didn't look back. She didn't need to. She had done what she came to do. And just like that, she was gone. But her story would live forever. Because this wasn't just about survival. This was about love. A love so powerful, it transcended species, defied logic, and left an entire village in tears. A mother's love, boundless, eternal, and stronger than even death itself. And on that day, deep in the heart of the forest, the world learned something incredible. A mother never forgets. Not in life. Not in loss. And not in love. The mother bear walked away, her massive frame fading into the dense forest, swallowed by the shadows. She never looked back. She didn't need to. She had done what she came to do. The villagers stood frozen, their faces streaked with tears, their hearts pounding with emotions they couldn't explain. They had just witnessed something that defied everything they thought they knew. This wasn't just about survival. This wasn't just a wild animal acting on instinct. This was love. A love that crossed the boundaries of species. A love that overpowered logic. A love so raw, so pure, that it left an entire village speechless. People whispered, some clutching their hearts, others wiping their eyes. This story, this moment, would never be forgotten. It was proof that love isn't limited to humans. A mother's love never fades. It never dies. It never forgets. And today, in the depths of a quiet forest, the world was reminded of this truth in the most powerful way.